Hi everyone, my name is Vladimir and I'm head of reverse engineering in Solar for Race. Let's start. It's a rare case when a threat actor uses unique malware in their attacks. A year ago we first encountered GoblinRAT that we didn't manage to find anywhere else except a limited set of infrastructures. It designed the way to be stealthy and collect information. And about this, my further speech. Why we start incident response? The client noticed that system logs were disappearing, and there were signs of NTDS that did dumping. He had a huge infrastructure and no clue where should we search for the source of infection. So we started examining dozens of hosts, hoping to find a malware sample or any sign of persistence. At some time, we found the use of SCP and CURL for exfiltration, but still nothing more complicated than this. As you may know, when you have gigabytes of information to inspect and not that much time, you can't simply examine each and every file carefully. Over time, we started collecting enough information to figure out which service do we need. And after a close look at collected artifacts from a Zabbix server, we found an interesting process. And the main difference from the real Zabbix is the name of the executable. So next we use the power of grep, which led us to a server's file where this executable is mentioned. We were very excited because it was the first huge step forward after a long time of searching without any result. We immediately started inspecting the file, and later on we learned that that was the malware we had been looking for. We dubbed it GoblinRAT. It's written in Golang and doesn't have complicated evasion techniques. At the time, all functionality appears to be there to help mimic the environment and be stealthy. It changes process name and removes artifacts of deployment. Before starting communication with C2, it establishes TLS connection with mutual authentication. We also find a variant of this malware that utilizes port knocking method for accepting connection from the threat actor. Capabilities for an advanced backdoor is pretty common. It provides interactive shell, can do some various operations on a file system, also can be served as a SOX 5 proxy server, but it has quite a lot of exotic feature. It can rewrite its embedding configuration by copying itself and patching the binary. And we wouldn't call this malware super stealthy one if it wasn't capable of destroying itself on a timer. It has a kill switch timer that can only be deactivated by an operator by establishing connection and providing secret string. Also, Goblin rewrites for deletion a file with random data several times. Now, when we have our first malware sample, we can write a YARN and scan everywhere we can, right? That's what we did, but guess what? Retro on VT failed. However, when we scanned a few suspicious hosts, we found it brought us some fruit. Let's observe several cases in details. The first case is mimic of cron. In the output of the PS tool, the two process looks very similar. The only difference is the amount of consumed RAM. Golang binary is much more greedy. Another interesting thing is that the samples is located in sham directory where data stores only in RAM. The next case is connected with atop. First, intruders try to replace atop executable with a piece of malware, but then they wrapped GoblinRAT into a .so file and modified atop to load the malicious library. It makes it more difficult to notice as there wouldn't be a new process and an absence of atop log files. And last for today is HornD debug file, and there are two interesting points about it. First, it contains two addresses for C2 communication instead of one, and the next is mimic process doesn't match the file name. And a few words about intruders infrastructure. Almost all found addresses belongs to legal website, and C2 software binds the same port as the website, 443. Obtained domains also indicate that threat actor is not low-skilled, as they mimic legal software as well as the file name and the process name. And as an example, HornD debug file contains hornd.tftpd.net domain. Further research revealed hornd.com domain. Also, they sometimes create new domain names for old servers. Among other tools, There are native OS tools, secrets dumps, and some Python script for host information gathering, and that's all we found. But as all we know, that the size doesn't matter, but skill does. And this threat actor is definitely a skilled one. After incident response is over, we continued our research. We tried to identify who could be stand behind these attacks. And here I've collected several points. First attack stats in 2020, and every executable we found contained the same certificate issuer. Besides failed scan on VT, even our colleagues with global footprints of sensor didn't manage to find other GoblinRAT or anything similar. And all these points led us to conclude that this is a unique malware. If we had a limited number of victims and absence of special artifacts for attribution, the only interesting we can state that we don't know who is it, and that's why I'm here and share the story with you. Hope together we will manage to reveal the truth that hides behind these attacks. To conclude, I'd like to highlight some obvious points. The first, humans remain the main vulnerability. In all cases, stealthy activity directed towards cybersecurity specialists, no average user or security product. And of course, double check your Zabbix agents.